Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And I just want to say at the top of the podcast, this might sound a little bit odd, but Merry Christmas, everybody!
I don't know what's happening. Why are we telling everybody Merry Christmas?
Well, you see, what I've taken to doing, because I don't eat meat, so for Christmas, I have a tofurkey log, okay? And they only sell them in Walmart. I only go in Walmart once a year to buy the tofurkey log. And, we have that for Christmas dinner and we have all the trimmings with it. But for the last few years, when I get a tofurkey log, I buy two of them.
Ah, okay.
And because Hannah and I were both at home today, because today is a public holiday, it was decided today was the Christmas lunch day. So I had my tofurkey log, I had stuffing, I had cranberry sauce, I had Brussels sprouts, I had stuffing, and I also had mashed potatoes. It was very delicious. So, Christmas food again at the end of January.
And basically a month later, you went like right a month apart. Now, I will say I love tofurkey. I think it actually tastes really good. But the superior food for me for all the holidays is always stuffing. And I don't want fancy stuffing. I want good, plain bread stuffing. That's what I want.
Yeah, Stovetop is the US brand. I don't know what you have anywhere else in the world, but Stovetop is the US brand of choice.
Don't be adding no craisins or celery. I want whatever's in the box, the fake stuff. That's what I want.
That's what you need. Well, perfect. Well, anyhow, that's what we had for lunch today. So it was like Christmas all over again.
Fair enough. Well, that's fun.
But there we go. Okay, so here at the top of the show, I've got a couple of music news items. I think Joy has a music news item as well.
Yes.
So the first music news item is about No Doubt.
Oh, I love No Doubt.
Yeah, so No Doubt have reunited. Now, they reunited last year at Coachella, and that was like the first time they've played for a long, long time. Almost like 10 years since they've played. But there's a big fire aid benefit coming up for that, terrible devastation that's gone on in California. So a lot of the entertainment community are getting together, organizing concerts and events to aid the folks who lost their homes and all the other sad stuff that happened there. But apparently, No Doubt are reuniting again for Fire Aid.
I love that. I'm very, actually, as sad as it is that we have to have Fire Aid, I am excited to see the concert, and I plan on watching it. I've been following a little bit of the news around it.
Yeah, I mean, No Doubt is a band which I enjoyed when they were first out. I bought my copy of Tragic Kingdom, not the one I have now, but my original copy of Tragic Kingdom, I bought in a cash converters or something of like that in Perth, Australia for $3 Australian. I was thrifting back in '98, let me tell you.
What a very specific thing. I will say, Just a Girl, It's My Life, Don't Speak.
Spiderwebs.
Hey Baby, Hella Good. They're all hit. Now, there was some controversy if they counted as when they first started. What kind of band is it, Tim?
They said that they were a ska band.
Ska band. That's the word I was trying to find. Do you believe they were ska?
I mean, they were as ska as Green Day is punk.
Yeah, fair enough. I think they may have started out with that being their vibes, but it just slowly got. I mean, they had a trumpeter. That's about the extent of ska that I saw. So take that however you want. But I liked No Doubt. I liked old No Doubt, to be sure. And I even like Gwen Stefani independently. I listened to a lot of her albums, too.
Yeah, I found that her solo stuff became a very mainstream poppy. It No Doubt had a sound about it, whereas she kind of disappeared into an abyss of other pop stars of a similar ilk for me.
I think that I was right at the prime age, though, for her to kind of, do that and sway and go into. But I agree. I prefer her in the band over independently. And I will say her most recent music has really lost me. And something about her recently I don't really care for. I don't really like the Christmas albums. I've talked about this. It just doesn't do it for me. Feels like a cash grab, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, all artists have to have a Christmas album out there because, I mean, that's your market, for 1.5 months a year. I mean, everyone's going to be playing Gwen Stefani doing a cover version of Christmas Rapping or something.
Fair enough. All right, what's next?
The other one is very sad news today. Rock in peace, sir. We lost the legendary Thin Lizzy and Whitesnake guitarist John Sykes.
I saw that. Now, I mean, he had to be quite old, right? I'm
Well,
not crazy.
he was only 65.
Wow.
He'd been battling cancer for a number of years, and there have been some thoughts that he might pull through and beat it. But sadly, unfortunately, we lost him today. It's very, very sad. Legendary musician, made such
Yeah.
great music with Whitesnake, and probably more with Thin Lizzy. But such a great guitarist. Is famous for playing a Gibson Les Paul.
Hmm.
Such a great player, and it's a shame that we had to say goodbye to him at such an early age.
Well, I hate that. And wherever you are, best. I mean, I guess rock in peace, as Tim would say. I don't know what you would say to you, but I hope you have a guitar somewhere and you're enjoying yourself now.
Absolutely. Yeah. As I said, very, very, very sad for 65. Incredibly
Yeah.
sad.
I would have thought he was older, to be honest. Oh, well. Do you have anything else, Tim?
No, that's all the
All
music
right.
news items that I have for today.
So I have a little bit of music news and then I'll hop into the episode. Now, this is also guitar related news. I don't what we do, like I think 70% of our podcast is guitar related news. But anyway, did you know you can now own the guitar that was played like a Rolling Stone at Newport 1965 for a whopping $275,000?
Now, is this when Bob Dylan went electric? Is it he went electric Stratocaster, or is it
It's a
an acoustic?
telecast. It's the Telecaster that Michael Bloomfield played at Bob Dylan's 1965 Newport Folk Festival set, and it definitely looks electric in the pictures.
There we go. So the guitar that Bob Dylan played at the Newport Folk Festival, when he famously went electric, that was a Fender Stratocaster, and I think that was sold a number of years ago for a lot of
Probably.
money. Now, Michael Bloomfield was a very famous guitar player. He was known for playing mostly a Gibson Les Paul, and in fact,
Yeah.
the 59 Les Paul that he had is known as the Bloomfield Burst, and I forget who has it. Some collector has it now, but on that particular gig, he must have been playing that Telecaster. Now, I mean, it's in reality, it's probably just an old junky guitar, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this whole thing with guitar players that if it's from the 60s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, it must be good because it's old. And to some degree, yes, the ones that survived are probably the good ones. But me personally, I'd always prefer new instruments than old ones. But that's just me. But that instrument has the kudos because it was on stage when that event happened.
Yeah, and famously, I guess Michael Bloomfield was called up by Bob Dylan, and he just performed. All he performed at this festival was like a Rolling Stone, which of course is one of Dylan's most iconic songs. But yeah, if you decide, Tim, you would like to buy it, you can get it on Reverb.com for this is USD, of course, 275,000.
There we go.
For
Well,
this.
I've bought things on Reverb. I bought my Blue Taylor guitar on Reverb. I bought a PRS, which I subsequently hated and sold. I got that on Reverb. And
Oh,
I recently bought a Zoom pedal on
fair
Reverb.
enough. Well, and apparently Bloomfield traded the Telecaster guitar for Les Paul, but it was bought for somebody or played by Graham Parsons in the International Submarine Band, who
Hmm.
actually modified it, or they said, or arguably mutilated the guitar with a distinct second cutaway to accommodate his left-handedness. So if you do get it, it's probably mutilated.
Yeah, in fact, I know the instrument you mean. So it almost looks like a double cutaway Les Paul Jr. It has two cutaways, whereas like a regular Telecaster only has the one cutaway on the treble side.
Well, there you go. If you want a mutilated guitar, guys, just got to come up with the money.
I mean, as I said, in reality, a Telecaster is two bits of wood screwed together.
Yeah.
Really? How can it be worth that much?
Well, I think and I know Tim could probably say more about this, but I know famously, like Tim said, the Newport 65 was when Dylan went electric, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it's known for. So I imagine that's all you're paying for is that hype around that specific statement.
Oh, well, absolutely 100%. And the same thing is that, a certain guitar played by someone at somewhere. It's just, it has that rock and roll cachet that comes with it.
Yeah, and if you're like I guess in a way, this is more of an art piece than anything else. That's what you're into, go for it. But I feel like I would buy other things if I had that much money currently.
Yeah, I'd pay the mortgage off on my house for one.
I would pay my car off first and then we'll go from there. There's a credit card bill out there that needs some money towards it too. So that's where I would start. All right. So this is an episode I'm very excited for. I have forced him once again outside of his comfort zone. And ironically, he got forced into listening to this longer than he should have because Joy got H1N1 and tested positive for that last week. So I was off sick and dying for about what felt like 3 to 7 days. And I'm allergic to the Tamiflu or whatever it is they call it in other countries. There's like a little thing you can take if you take when you first test positive, and it's supposed to speed up the process of the flu. Joe's allergic to it, so that doesn't happen for me.
Yeah, I had, which I consider, I consider myself patient zero for the COVID because I had that way before it was cool, and it was all the same symptoms, and it felt the worst I'd ever felt in my life. They gave me Tamiflu, and it made me feel considerably worse.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people have bad reaction to it. Now, for those that it works for, it works really good. It's kind of like now they have that medicine you can take if you have COVID. My mom took it because, the older you are, sorry, mom, to call you out, but, the more likely you are to have more complications. Mm-hmm. So they gave it to my mom because she actually ended up in, I think, urgent care one night with COVID. And she said that made her stomach so upset that she would have rather just had the plain COVID because not only was she having COVID symptoms, now she has an upset stomach too.
Yeah.
So there you go. Anyway, don't get H1N1. That was the second time I've had it, and both times it was terrible. The time I had it before, I was much younger, and me and Charlie both got it. And I was like 19, and we had our little apartment in Utah, and I don't even think I had health insurance at the time. I'm pretty sure I got tested at the health department. And we both lied on the floor because we didn't really have any immediate family for about a week and died and then came back to life. I remember that very distinctly because that was like my apartment. Your first apartment where like you have like a lawn chair and like a TV on like a blow up something. That was that apartment.
Yeah, I've lived through that too.
I think we all do. I find it funny when you get like your first apartment, Tim, and the things that you don't realize you need. So I have a very distinct memory of this apartment. And mind you, money was tough at this point. So and I was a college kid and I was working and I just didn't have a lot of money. And I had gotten like a can of soup or a can of chili or something, and that's really all I had to eat that night. And guess what I didn't have? A can opener. You don't think of these things until you need them when you get your first apartment. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tim? Like those weird little things that you take for granted, like your parents always had, or you just always had around. Can opener, scissors, spatula.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same because when I moved here, all I came with was my guitar collection and one suitcase full of clothes and a few personal items I'd sent in the mail ahead of getting here.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we was living with Hannah's parents for a year, and then we found our own first apartment, and it's the same. It's like you're in it, and you're like, oh yeah, do we have scissors?
And you don't think about it until you need them.
Yeah. Do we have a reel of tape? And it's like, no.
And you're like, and if it's anything like me, it's right after you've moved, and the last thing you want to do is go buy a pair of scissors. I ended up knocking on my neighbor's door and getting the can opener from them. And then I debated, because there are ways to get into a can without a can opener, but they're quite dangerous. So
sure. I
just skipped it. Anyway, all right. So now that I have talked, probably not related at all to this topic, my topic is it's Lady Gaga. Tim, how did you feel about listening to Lady Gaga for 2 weeks now because I had H1N1?
Yeah. So my only real exposure to Lady Gaga really was Poker Face.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, that's the only song of Lady Gaga's that I've probably heard. And I only know that because when I would DJ the breaks for some of these bands, I played it when it was out and it was very popular. So that's the only thing I had. I will tell you, and I'll be completely honest with you, these songs, which you obviously like of Lady Gaga, nothing there really stood out as amazing to me. And I'm just being honest to you. Much how I think we did Deep Purple, and you said they all pretty much sounded the same.
That's fair.
All of this sounds like contemporary pop. Now, I don't know much about Lady Gaga, but you've told me she's this amazing singer, songwriter, performer, yada, 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 all of this stuff. But if all I knew about Lady Gaga was these songs, I would just think it's just generic pop.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, she has So what's interesting about Lady Gaga is like when you look back at her original, like kind of like the Fame Monster, which is and Fame, and then the Fame Monster, where you're going to get like Just Dance and Poker Face, those kind of songs. Those she openly admits were generic pop, and she did it on purpose because she knew it would sell.
Hmm.
Like that's how she put herself out there. I mean, she's literally admitted that it was supposed to be kind of electric techno pop. And she said, it sold millions. And once I got my name out there, then I could start adding a little bit more variety. And I'm sure Tim could see a little bit more variety, like the Joanne album or the one like You and I, which we'll talk about later and things like that. That's when
Sure.
she kind of started bringing some of her own stuff into it. Now, for those who don't know anything about Lady Gaga, her real name is Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germati. So she is Italian. She's from New York. She is known as kind of an interesting figure. When she first got started, a lot of focus was on her clothes. And she says she regrets that in a way because she did it exactly the way she did the album, where it was going to create fame and buzz around her to get her name out. Um, Now, she has done some acting, and she actually admits that she wanted to be an actor first, but she was really bad at auditioning, like just really bad at auditioning. So she kind of fell into music, I guess.
Hmm.
Her family is upper class Catholic. They live in Manhattan. She began playing the piano at age 4. She is a classically trained pianist, and she went to NYU. Was it NYU or was it? I want to say it's either NYU or she went to Juilliard. I can't remember. Hold on. Let me read it, guys. I'm mostly saying this from knowledge, but let me read. Gained admission into the Collaborative Arts Program, NYU. Yes, the
Hmm.
Tisch Center for the School of Arts. She studied music there. I mean, she writes her own music. She does all of the, all the lyrics. Everything is from her. So whether you like it or not, she does do that side of it. And there's like this funny thing where I found out later she was actually on an old MTV music show. Like, when they were getting into reality TV, there was a show
Yes.
called Boiling Point, and she happened to be on it. Have you heard that, Tim?
Yeah, she was also Stephanie on MTV's The Real World.
So, and see, like I said, she actually wanted to start off acting. That's really where she wanted to go, but she just said she was really bad at auditioning.
No.
And so she was like, it didn't work. And then she did a lot of like local concerts, and like she kind of got known for like avant-garde electronic music, like Lollapalooza, early 2000 type stuff, downtown clubs. She did that kind of thing. And that really is what got her into the works until she met L.A. Reid, which if you don't know anything about L.A. Reid, aka Def Jam Records, that's when she was signed. She was signed to Def Jam in mid 2000s. And then she kind of did a lot of the local circuit until she finally broke through with the Fame and Fame Monster, which is where you're going to get your classic Just Dance and Poker Face. Now, unless you've lived under a rock, you have heard Just Dance and Poker Face, even if it wasn't by choice, right, Tim?
Yeah, I know Poker Face. I don't think I know Just Dance.
Just Dance, gonna be okay. I'm surprised you haven't heard that when you're like playing DJ mixes and stuff. It's basically the same song.
Yeah, if I heard it, maybe I didn't hear it. Now, one thing I would like to say about Lady Gaga, and maybe this is something that most Lady Gaga fans don't know, is that her whole persona with these outrageous costumes, the famous MTV meat dress,
Yep.
really all of that directly goes back to Grace Jones. Grace Jones was wearing ridiculous costumes like in the 80s. And I think she must be an influence on Lady Gaga because
She absolutely is. She said that.
Yeah.
Her, and then of course there's beef between her and Madonna, but people have made that correlation before too.
yeah, but I mean, even Madonna. I mean, Grace Jones was wearing outrageous costumes before Madonna was. Madonna was just straightforward chart pop, and
Yeah.
Grace Jones was being something completely different.
Well, and she says that, and she actually talks about, she takes a lot of her, she also, David Bowie was a big influence for her. I've seen her admit that, with the androgynous kind of stuff and like different things where David Bowie was very outstandish and he had some costumes and things like that. And then, of course, Elton John. Elton John openly admits that the reason he wore all the costumes was because he wasn't like a dancer and he was behind a piano and he needed to catch your attention. And she
Sure.
is actually the godmother to Elton John's children.
Well, there we go.
There you go, everybody. Now, with that being said, we are going to, I gave Tim a list, which apparently I was there. I could have gave you 13 more songs. Like this list was hard. I'm still mad I didn't put Teeth by Lady Gaga on there. But anyway, and the entire time I was listening to this, I kept thinking, I would love to know Tim's reaction to what's happening, because I don't know if he's going to think I'm torturing him or if he's going to enjoy it, or maybe a little bit of both. We'll never know. But anyway, we will get into the episode. And there were few little Easter eggs that Tim figured out in this already.
Yes.
But the first song I picked, and these songs are all songs that are actively played on my Spotify regularly. Like I listen to these songs regularly. They were not just handpicked. So the first one I picked was Judas by Lady Gaga, which is obviously a play on Judas from the Bible. I'm hoping you got that reference.
Yes, absolutely. Now this song is like a pumping Europop song. It's like it's the sort of song that you would hear in as I would say, roller disco, which is probably a wrong reference to say. But I mean, it's a pumping song.
It's amazing. And so I like this one. Now, this is one of the songs that I don't think got near enough. Like it didn't get a lot of people weren't interested in it because it was a little polarizing around religious groups and wasn't received well because of some of the indication. And if you watch the video, it's giving a little bit of Madonna, like a prayer in the sense that there is some very distinct pictures and things in there. But I love this song. And it is a dark song, don't get me wrong, but I absolutely love this song. I kind of like the play on that. I think it makes it funner than if it were just, and maybe, not everybody likes the biblical story of Judas betraying Jesus, but in the video, she's Mary Magdalene. Tim, I don't know if you know that or not. So that's why it's a little, and she's getting stoned and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen any of these videos. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't watch a lot of pop videos. I mean, if it was like MTV and it was on, I'd watch it, but I typically don't seek out a lot of pop videos unless it's something great like We Built This City or Ghostbusters or Debbie Gibson's Electric Youth.
Fair enough. But yes, so that was the opening one. And this is one of my favorite Gaga songs for anybody who's listening and curious. Now, the next one I picked is classic pop. And this is the one that I was sitting there singing, she's beautiful and dirty rich. And then I thought, I wonder what Tim is thinking while he is listening to Beautiful, Dirty Rich by Lady Gaga. And this is from Fame. So this is from that first album that was iconically pop.
Yeah, it's got like a pop hip hop crossover sort of sound to it. It's got that very strong sort of chorus breakdown bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's what she was playing for, though. I love the way the bridge kind of like the part I just sang. I like how it kind of has that back and forth. But I mean, 90% of the song is just bang, bang. It's beautiful and dirty rich. There's not a lot of other words to the song.
It doesn't have, it's not Bohemian Rhapsody when it comes to the
not by any stretch.
Imagery in the lyrics by any chance. But I mean, it is what it is. It's a hip hop influenced pop song which sounds like it's got samples and all kinds of stuff going on in it. And you said that's from her first album. Yeah,
that was from the Fame, or maybe that was the second. Which one? Fame Monster was second. So this would be the first, yes. Then she had the Fame and then she had Fame Monster, which are basically the same album extended. But anyway, now Joanne was then one of her later albums, and that's where the next song comes from. And I listened to this song nonstop. Now, I almost picked a different song because the one that was released as a single, which is called Ayo, kind of has more of a I don't want to say Southern feel to it, but that's what she was going for with this whole album, as you can tell. But the next song is John Wayne by Lady Gaga. What did you feel about this change? Because there is a little bit of a switch up in how this music is presented from the Fame.
Yeah, this one has got like a little bit more of a swinging beat type thing to it. It still has that sort of techno pop type feel about it. Certainly a little bit more lyrically interesting than Beautiful, Dirty, and Rich.
That's what I was gonna say. It's so basically she's talking about she loves a cowboy. I'm strung out on John Wayne. That's kind of the gist of it. If you watch the music video, she's on the back of the guy's motorcycle. He's driving in a car and throwing beer bottles out the window. but the video is kind of cool because it has like a lot of like blacklight type stuff in it. So there's like a play on that. I don't know. It just craving a blue collared man. It's literally what the whole song's about. Now, to be fair, she said that some people thought that this was portraying, she was in a relationship with this Taylor Kennedy guy who I couldn't tell you what he even looks like, but I think he was on a TV show that was about like firemen. So I think he probably gave like that blue collar-esque type thing. Don't come for me, internet. I don't know anything about Taylor Kitty, but there was a theory that that was kind of what the song was for. And I think it was used in a movie, but I can't remember what movie it was. There's some movie that the song was in that was kind of falling in line with that.
So was this one released as a single, or is it purely just an album track?
I think this one's just an album track. I don't remember it being a single because the single on this was probably, well, the next song, which we're going to talk about, and then Ayo would have been for Joanne. And this is when she was trying to get back to Joanne's her real name. She was trying to get back to like her roots in this one. And she said she was trying to step more into the music that she actually likes versus like the fame, which she wanted to get famous. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. She's kind of like Kiss in that sense, Tim. She's very open that that's what she was doing.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, that's what she did. Now, the next song, Perfect Illusion, was most definitely a single, and it was everywhere if you liked Gaga. And to be fair, I absolutely love this song because I like how it has that like build up, like gotta better know. Like I like when she's like yelling it at you, but it is incredibly too long. It goes on. Did you catch that, Tim, that this song seemed to say the same thing over and over again with that exact build up for what felt like 3 hours?
Yeah, it's only 3 minutes and 2 seconds. I mean, it says perfect illusion. Is it a perfect length? I have absolutely no idea. Now, one thing I did find out, and we had this by pure coincidence, Joy and I were discussing this song before we recorded. This song to me sounds exactly like Hadaway's "What Time Is Love."
What? Oh, what is the? Oh,
yeah,
you might be onto something because I mean, she's literally, saying it was a perfect. Wasn't? Yeah, I guess you're probably right. You're not necessarily off to the.
And then the beat, the way the beat is, well, baby, don't hurt me no more.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's almost exactly the same. I mean, I don't think this song is a sample.
But the play, I mean, it definitely gives pop, disco kind of vibes or Eastern European variety in the 90s. I don't think you're wrong.
Though I'm looking at who wrote it. Mark Ronson, Michael Tucker, Kevin Parker, Lady Gaga. Produced by Mark Ronson, Lady Gaga, Kevin Parker.
This whole album was produced by Mark Ronson.
Yeah, and Blood Pop, which I'm assuming Blood Pop are probably Swedish.
That sounds right. Now, I will say, I recently talked to Tim about this, and this is completely probably lost on Tim because he really, I mean, he listened to it, he understood what I was saying, but I don't know that he has the same thoughts. But Lady Gaga just did an album with Bruno Mars. Now, I love Bruno Mars and I love Lady Gaga, and they're both very similar in the sense that they write their own music, they perform their own, you know what I mean, Tim? And they kind of have larger than life personalities. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like about them is they feel a little bit raw in some of their music. And especially when you get away from the Fame Monster, you start seeing like, you know what I mean, a little bit more originality and what I feel to be very interesting. The album they did together, because Mark Ronson's also produced music for Bruno Mars. I mean, and he did Valerie and Famously and like all kinds of stuff. That entire 24 karat, no, not 24 karat. What's the one that was everywhere for that I'm sure you had on your disco playlist that was from Bruno Mars? What is that song?
Uptown Funk.
Yes, that was Mark Ronson. And like I was really hoping that Mark Ronson would do the album for Gaga and for Bruno, and he did not. And it was very disappointing. It's boring. I'm just going to say it. It's a very boring album. It's got a lot of kind of love songs and back and forth, but every song on it sounds the same. There's nothing about it. It's almost too perfect. And that disappointed me because it stripped away everything I like about both artists, if that makes sense. And it's just not doing it for me, Tim. I was so disappointed because I wanted to like it, but I don't.
Sometimes legendary artists come together and they make something incredibly mediocre. For example, the Queen and Paul Rodgers album, The Cosmos Rocks. You take Paul Rodgers, Bad Company, Free, legendary artist. You take the iconic band Queen without Freddie Mercury. You smoosh them together, and what do you get? The most mediocre album that any of them have ever put out.
It's weird how that works. Like I said, it's almost like it came off too, I don't know, just too perfect. Like for some reason, I tend to like when things aren't always like, by the book perfect with musicians. We've talked about this before, and that's what I got from this. But anyway, I'll get off my high horse about that album. But if Mark Ronson's listening, he also did a whole album with Miley Cyrus. And did you ever hear that song that was everywhere called Flowers from Miley? I don't know if you did, Tim.
No.
You might have, but he recently did that too. And it's a good example. Whether you like him or not, Mark Ronson is a really good producer. He knows what he's doing as far as like pop music goes and getting, like you said, almost like the Swedish sound. Maybe he works with Swedish people. I don't know. I don't talk to Mark Ronson normally.
Maybe he knows. Maybe he knows some Swedes. I don't know. Maybe he went to Stockholm once. I don't know.
I don't know. If you're listening, Mark, let me know. But anyway, so the next one is Back to the Fame, and this song has Flo Rida on it, and it's pretty obvious it has Flo Rida on it, which is Florida. I love when people were realizing that Flo Rida's name meant Florida, Tim. Did you know that?
Yeah, it took me a while, I'll be honest with you, when he first came out, but once I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah.
I don't know that I figured it out. I think I heard somebody say he's from Florida, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like, and this not on this. Well, no, we're going to get to it. There's a reference to one of the songs later that I'll tell you. She's spelling something out in the background, but you don't realize that's what she's doing until you hear her say it. But anyway, so this one is Starstruck by Lady Gaga. Baby, can you blow my heart up? Now, this is very much pop. And this was released the year I graduated high school, and it was everywhere, Tim, everywhere.
Okay, well, it may have been everywhere, but I've never heard it before you sent it to me. To me, it sounded a lot like the Black Eyed Peas.
It kind of does.
And I see Miss Stephanie was using some kind of auto-tune effect for, as a kind of vocal type thing throughout the song. And then, of course, yes, Flo Rida comes in and does the prerequisite rap about halfway through.
Yeah, and there's somebody else on this called Space Cowboy. I don't know who that is, but apparently they're on this too, Tim, somewhere. Couldn't tell you who Space Cowboy was.
Well, it should be Steve Miller. Steve Miller is the Space Cowboy, but I doubt if he's on this track.
I could be wrong, but I think it's a different Space Cowboy. But I will say that Groove, Slam, Work It Back, Feel to That, Baby Bump That track lives rent free in my head. Whether I want it to or not, it's there. It's everywhere. For those who don't know, that's the part of the chorus.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said many times before, I mean, I almost exist in a world where they stopped making new music. I really do.
Fair enough. Well, I'm here to torture Tim and bring him back to like some bit of reality. Though Gaga's not even that like new anymore. We're talking about stuff that's like 20 years old. If you think about it, Tim, some of this came out in the early 2000s.
I know. And
Crazy.
I mean, again, really, apart from Poker Face, Lady Gaga is an artist that's completely passed me by.
Well, there you go. I forced you back into the... Anyway, all right. So the next one is a song that was also very popular and has a completely different feel because she's obviously going for a Spanish feel. This is Alejandro.
Yeah, it sounds like something they would play in a nightclub in Ayia Napa because it has that kind of Europop thing. And you say it has got a Spanishy type feel about it. And it's got that Alejandro kind of repeating chorus affair in it. And
to be fair, this song will be stuck in your head. This is an earworm if I've ever heard of that. Alejandro will be stuck in your head all the time. And, I know that we are young. And this one got a lot of, I think, comparisons to when Madonna did her kind of Spanish phase. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tim? Where she did like the kind of Hispanic sounding music and stuff.
Yeah, she did a song called La Isla Bonita, which is from the album True Blue. Tropical,
which is a great song.
Yeah, Tropical the Island Breeze.
But it's definitely synth pop. It's definitely got a Europop feel, and it does have some Latin beats for it. And I know that the like, I don't know if it's what instrument it is where she's saying, I know that you don't love me or whatever. I guess it's maybe a violin timbre, whatever that is in the background is a sample from a classic, like Hispanic song. Like that
Okay.
is a sample from something else, whatever that beat at the beginning is. Now going back to what we were talking about, interestingly enough, the studio for this one was actually in Amsterdam.
Hmm.
So there you go. I don't know if that's where it makes sense when you listen to it. But this song is known, I think, if you like were to like look at like her kind of, I don't want to compare her to like Queen or something, but her like Bohemian Rhapsody or like the top songs a lot of people will know.
Hmm.
Alejandra is one of those for her.
Okay.
So it was really, really, really popular. And you know, it does kind of have a cool feel to it, and it feels a little bit different than some of her other music. And she openly admits, Tim, this song was influenced by ABBA and Ace of Base.
Yeah, I can probably hear more Ace.
Fernando.
Yeah, I can hear Ace of Base. I don't necessarily hear ABBA in there, though I'm sure. Let's have a look at who wrote and produced this. I'm sure there's probably someone Swedish on it.
I don't know who this person is. I can tell you. So it's Gaga herself, and then it's Nidar something. Where's he from? I don't know. He's Moroccan, actually.
Oh, isn't there
But
someone Larson in there or so?
no. Now it does have a label, Streamline, Cherry Tree. I don't know who these people are. I don't see anything, but I mean, she does say Fernando like 47 times in the song, so I guess that's where she's getting the ABBA reference. I don't know. I could see though, yeah, I could see how it could be compared to ABBA in that sense. But the only thing I could think of is she's saying Fernando, but it's not really the song Fernando by ABBA, let's be honest.
No.
But anyway, all right. So, but I feel like Swedish pop has just influenced pop music so much, Tim, that even if they're not directly working on it, it just kind of like floats into the songs.
It is. I mean, ABBA is so influential to so many different people and so many different kinds of music. And I think that kind of rich tapestry of Swedish pop is embraced in the modern age because a lot of these producers and songwriters are all Swedes, or a lot of this stuff goes down in Sweden.
There you go. All right, guys. So the next song is one that had an Easter egg in it. So I will let Tim talk about how he discovered the Easter egg. But the next one is, if not my favorite Lady Gaga song, in the top three. This is You and I by Lady Gaga.
Yeah. So this song, well, I should say, so my method for learning and listening about this music, whenever Joy gives me an assignment like this, is I work, I have my lunch, I come back from my lunch, and then whatever I'm listening to, I turn that off. And then for the next hour, as I get back to my desk and catch up with things, I put the playlist on. So I'm listening away, maybe day two of Lady Gaga or something. I hadn't really absorbed it on day one. And I'm listening to this, and I'm like, that's Brian May. And I wasn't even looking at the credits. His tone and playing and phrasing is so unique. You can tell it's him straight off. And I was like, and I restarted the track again. And I was like, that is Brian May on there. And then, of course, I looked it up, and yeah, absolutely, it was Mr. Brian May. And then Joy sent me the clip earlier, and I'd forgotten about this, that she did the MTV Music Video Awards. I think it was in 2011, I think.
Yes. Yeah, that was.
And then Brian May comes out playing on this song. Mm-hmm. And obviously reprising his role on the recorded works. Now, I'm sure Brian May was never in the studio with Lady Gaga. I'm sure he was sent a load of files to Allerton Hill, and him and his producer knocked some guitar out, and then they sent it back, because that's pretty much how modern music is made.
Yeah.
To burst the illusion that all these great musicians are sitting around in a room together, go, no, that should be a G chord. No, play that. No, it's all some producer has like built the track out in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever they use, and then they'll email some stems to someone and they say, can you get Brian's people on the phone? Do you think he'd do Gaga? And then Brian's people say, yeah, Brian's up for that. He likes Gaga. Okay, and then you send it over, and then Brian will do.
He actually does like Gaga, by the way.
Yeah, so Brian will do 5 takes, 6 takes of all the same stuff. You send it across to the producer, and the producer edits in the track, and boom, there you go. That's how it's done. But it was interesting that he reprised his role for this live performance. Now, the interesting thing about this live performance, and I recommend that you pull it up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's worth a watch.
Yeah. One, Gaga is dressed like a drunken Elvis type
I have no
thing.
idea what was going on with. I can't. She was like that the entire night too, and maybe
Yeah.
she was just actually drunk, Tim. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and she's sloshing beer around. It's
I don't know what that was.
weird.
That was a very
Very, very weird.
strange choice. But anyway, to each their own.
Yeah. The other thing is that MTV have done this for many years, going back to like the fabled 1992 MTV Music Video Awards with Van Halen. The first 15 rows or 10 rows, they fill it with people from central casting. So
Yeah.
they're all people having the best time they've ever had and punching their fists in the air and they think it's the greatest thing ever. They're all paid to be there. So that's one thing. So you go out to the crowd and everyone in the first few rows
The
is
same
having
people who do the Olympics too, or not the Olympics, but the Super Bowl halftime show. You know, the ones in the audience. It's
Yeah.
the same company.
yeah. So for visually it looks fantastic because you've got Gaga there, you've got Brian May there. It looks, like it's the best
They
thing ever.
sound great.
Yeah, they sound great. But when they pan back to the audience, which are mostly industry people, they
so
couldn't
weird.
look more bored. You got Adele like literally turning her nose up at it. Justin Bieber is just confused, and then it just
And the only one who looked like he was having fun was Dave Grohl.
yeah. So Dave Grohl is in like the first row of the celebrities, and when because she starts her performance, and then
wow.
about halfway through, Brian May comes out. And like Dave Grohl's like, yeah, oh, yes, he couldn't be happier because he's friends with everyone, he knows Brian May, the whole thing, and he's so pleased. But he's the only one in the audience with that reaction of the actual industry people that are there. Everyone else is just completely confused by this performance.
It was so weird. I pointed it out to Tim, and Tim was like, "You're right. This is so weird." And my thing was, is even if you don't care for Gaga, I mean, like literally, Brian May was up there playing his heart out, and these people are acting like it's like nothing. And I'm like, why aren't they like more excited? Why is no one now? Justin Bieber, literally, what was I said? Looks like he's at the mall and lost his mother and was looking around for her.
Yeah, and Adele she had a sour look on her face. I mean, I don't have a lot of respect, I suppose is the word, for Adele because of the way she's treated her crew, and I just find her a little bit full of herself. But even still, she just looks sour.
I know. And then I'm like, why is the cameraman choosing these ones to focus it on? And then right at the end, I don't know if you caught it, Katy Perry and Russell Brand were showed right at the end. And they didn't look any happier either.
No, I mean, they were a tiny, tiny bit happy.
Yeah.
I mean, her time spent with Russell Brand was not a good moment in time, I think, for her. But I mean, even Katy Perry looked a little bit whoosh.
She kind of looked like she was enjoying it. Like she was like clapping along and like moving her head, but she didn't really look like, like this was a pretty iconic performance. And not in the fact that Brian himself came out, like Tim says, when they put this song together, they probably were never in the track together physically. So it was cool that he was willing to come out and do this. And he has actually spoke very positively of Lady Gaga. And I think a lot of older artists have, because she's one of the few ones now that plays her own instruments, writes her own songs. Do you know what I mean, Tim?
Yeah.
Like she has that kind of originality about her. And so they like that. That's kind of like what I was saying with Elton John. And he spoke very candidly that Brian May's like, I think she's a good artist. I like some of the interesting things she does. And he even touted her. Tim would hate to hear this, and I'm probably going to make him cringe a little or something. But he even said at one point in time, it was touted that she might be the lead singer for Queen before they picked Adam Lambert.
Do you know what? In a way, I would have preferred that.
Really?
Yeah, in a way I would have. I think it would have been something different. And like I said before, I got nothing against Adam Lambert. Adam Lambert is a great singer. He's a great performer. He's got an amazing range. His music is not something I would listen to particularly. Nothing against the guy. And if I was
you respect him as an artist.
Yeah, and if I was him, I'd be doing what he was doing. But, I don't want him in my favorite band because you get a flamboyant dude standing at the front with an amazing range who can sing, operatic Broadway's type stuff. And you plonk him in the front of my favorite rock band, and it's just like
it feels
full. It feels forced to me.
Well, and the character traits of Adam Lambert and the original lead singer Queen, Freddie Mercury, are very close. So it feels like they're trying to push some type of you know what I mean, Tim?
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury 2.0, whereas with Gaga, now we're going to talk about her later, where she's performed with some living, and if you go look her up, she can sing very well rock music. Like she can. She's actually got great pipes. She could put on a really good show, and it would have been something different, but still maybe the songs you like. So I see what you're saying. Another one we talked about was like Miley, but yeah, Brian May, they had talked about letting her do the lead singing for, I don't know what happened with it or why they picked Adam, but
Yeah, I would have been more about it if it would have been her. But I mean, who should have been the singer was Miley Cyrus, because Miley Cyrus can sing everything. And has a swagger and has stage presence and can sing rock and roll. It should have
it would have been
her.
an interesting choice. I really like that you said that because I thought that too. But I will say that when I was reading, because I was kind of like looking through everything. Oh, we didn't mention on You and I, there's also another famous person. Well, there's two famous things, actually. One, if you pay attention at the very beginning, see, I didn't pick up on the Brian May guitar immediately the first time I heard this song. What I picked up on is that it's sampling We Will Rock You, but in a very slow, kind of drawn out way that.
Yeah, it has a little bit of that.
It's actually like credited as a sample in the like track. Now it's not that has been used classically. Like I could bang on my table and make that sound, right, Tim?
Sure.
I mean, I know everybody thinks of We Will Rock You, but it does have that in there. And that was the first thing I picked up on. I was like, oh, that sounds like We Will Rock You. But that's been done about 1,000 times in many music, right?
Sure.
And the idea was, we all know, was that the audience can play into that building kind of, that was the fun part of the song. But I was listening to it again and something stuck out to me. Mutt Lange is on this track and he produced it.
Yeah. So that's another thing I was going to come on to. So this sounds a lot like a Shania Twain track. If you had Shania Twain singing this song, it would not sound out of school, as it were. And the fact that Mutt Lange has produced it, he has that Shania sound sheen about it. And if you listen very carefully, which I have listened, you will hear that her voice is being doubled by Mutt Lange, and then the harmonies are done by Mutt Lange, giving that same kind of Shania Twain sound about it.
And that's probably why I love this song, and why I said that if I had to pick one of the like famous, you know, like one of the Gaga songs is like my top. This is up there. And this song does have, and this is on Born This Way, which is one of her newer albums, which we haven't really talked about. And that was when she kind of made a change in some of her music. It has a different feel. It has a different. Now, one thing that's interesting about this song, now she says, you know, something about that Nebraska guy in it about 1,000 times. When she sold this to the radio, they would change it to whatever state she was in. So if it was on 99.1 local news, it would say something about that Virginia guy. And then if it was in North Carolina, they changed. She had like, I guess she did a version with every state that they stuck in there. And when they would play it, they would change it to that version. And that kind of stood out and like people got interested into it. I like just added a little extra something to the song.
Interesting.
And I'm sure that started because, you know, when you go watch an artist and they're like, this is the best city I've ever been. And they name whatever state they're in, you know, and put it in their music.
We've been to a lot of towns, but
you're my favorite.
Roanoke is the favorite town we've ever been to.
Yeah, but that was kind of cute. And I mean, I was like, I was sitting there thinking to myself, logistically, did she have to re-record like just that line and they just inserted it 50 times?
Yeah, I mean, you have the project up in Logic or whatever you use. Yeah. She just says Virginia and then North Carolina, and you just drop it in.
Fair enough. But anyway, so that's but yeah, if you pick any song to listen to out this album or off this list, listen to You and I think it's probably worth it. And I think that it kind of like, you'll know instantly. Once you know it's Brian May, well, for Tim, it was very obvious. Now, like, I know it's very obvious it's him on the guitar. It has a very distinct, well, how did you describe his newer sound, Tim? You gave it like a name, but I can't think of how to say it.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like Brian May. He's playing with a coin.
But it has like a rough kind of like,
it has a very warm, fat sound about it that screams at the same time. And then he does that stuff where you double track it, triple, quadruple track it.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to, yeah. If you hear it, you'll know. This sounds right. But anyway, You and I love that song. Now, the next one was a little bit, I thought would be interesting for Tim because while Gaga is on it, she is not the lead artist on this song. I picked Sweet Sounds of Heaven, which features Lady Gaga by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, so I had high hopes for this because, you know, the Rolling Stones have famously performed "Gimme Shelter" with Mary Clayton. And then there was a 25th anniversary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction thing where they did it with Fergie. And Fergie really killed it with that. She has such a powerful voice. And I had high hopes for her on this track with the Rolling Stones with that kind of heritage. Obviously, this track isn't Gimme Shelter, but it's the same kind of backwards and forwards with Mick Jagger.
Yep.
I don't know if it's the key it's in. I don't know whether it's just a production. But Gaga's voice to me sounds weak on this track.
So what I gathered from that is I actually love this, but I know what Tim's saying, and I think it's purposeful. So I think she is trying to mimic Mick Jagger a little too much. And she's singing pretty much all of his music, but in a higher, I think she's trying to harmonize with him, right? So she's doing it in a higher key, and it's making her voice not sound as, it doesn't sound like Gaga. It sounds
thin. It sounds very thin. It doesn't have any kind of welly to it at all. It's just, it's almost like it could be anyone type backing singer type thing.
I don't know if I would know it was Gaga when I heard it. Now, I will say I sent Tim a live version of it, and I think I prefer the live version over the studio version because you hear her a little bit more. But I think it's on purpose. I don't think that it was, I think it's trying to play on how Mick Jagger does his kind of, he's got that sound.
Sure.
And she took that, I think, a little to heart and tried to play his voice, and it's too much. I want to hear more of Gaga and less of him. I want to hear both. And I think she could have wailed on it. And I do think the harmonies on this are great. She does a good job, if you want to look at it from a music perfectionist level, but there's something missing in her voice in this song, and it's quite sad because I actually like the song.
Yeah, it may be the key. Maybe the key just doesn't, it suits Mick, but it doesn't suit her.
That's what I think it is. That's what I gathered from it. And it makes it feel like she's almost trying too hard.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that.
But what did you think of the live version? I think I like that better than the studio version.
Yeah, the live version is significantly better than the studio version. But again, I think my criticisms of her on the track still remain.
Are the same. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I just threw that in there because it was just a little bit different and to break up Tibbs' 12 Lady Gaga songs in a row. All right. Now, this song was a song that was everywhere. And this one probably was pure torture to Tim. Because it's Lady Gaga and it's Beyonce. And I have very distinct memories of the song. This song is Telephone. Now, I love Telephone, but it's definitely dance pop, Euro music 101. Now, what's interesting about this, though, Tim, was first of all, at the end of so this was a very big music video. And it was everywhere. And there was a lot of product placement in this music video. When this music video came out, my husband, Charles, Tim knows that, but for those listening, was working for Virgin Mobile, the cell phone company, doing IT support. And this song was produced by Virgin Mobile. They were behind a lot of the song. In the music video, there's about 37 different clips of a Virgin Mobile cell phone, when she's in the jail and they're trying to get her out and all kinds of stuff. And Charlie talks about they worked, in an IT support kind of call center type thing. So there's not all it's usually pretty quiet besides people taking calls. But they literally had this up on a screen in the call center, just the music video playing on repeat with the Virgin Mobile. You couldn't hear the music, but they actually had it playing because it was so heavily influenced by Virgin Mobile. I don't know. What's the guy who Bronson?
Richard Branson.
I don't know what his obsession with Lady Gaga is, but they put a lot of money into being part of this. Now, I get it because it was Gaga and Beyonce, and it was during a time when Beyonce was very popular and Gaga was very popular, so it was a highly sought after music video, and it's a long music video. There's multiple parts and a story, and she's basically Beyonce's breaking Lady Gaga out of prison, Tim. And then they poison a guy, and then they do a dance. Then they get in a car and they drive off. But supposedly there was supposed to be a part 2 when they drive off, kind of in a horror movie when it never ends, or they give you a lead into the next movie or whatever. That's what the drive off into the sunset was, because it says to be continued. But Gaga hated the song so much, and they didn't drive well or something, that there was never a part 2. Not Gaga. Actually, I think Beyonce hated the song so much.
There we are. Well, I will say, casually listening to it, I had no idea it was Beyonce. I didn't know that until I saw, the track listing. And Yeah, again, this is standard Euro pop type stuff. It didn't really stand out to me at all. As I said, again, hearing it on your playlist was the very first time I've ever heard it.
Fair enough. This is there's a lot of words to this. Did you realize how wordy this one was,
Yeah,
Tim?
it gets very wordy.
It's a very wordy song. Now, I know every lyric, and I really loved this when it came out, but that stop telephone, it stuck in my head for at least 70, because, that's what it does, and it's got some type of synthetic over it to give it the sound. Like, I don't know if I loved it or if it was just forced to be heard. I can't tell you. And it won like all kinds of awards, and a lot of people loved it, but Gaga and Beyonce didn't. That's the irony. They kind of hated it, I think, based off of what I've heard. And then maybe it was two egos or something, or they just didn't like it. I'm not sure.
Could be.
But the irony is there was so much money put into this music video and so many different product placements in this music video. And then they were going to do it to be continued. Never happened.
Never happened again. You know what that's like? That's like the film Flash Gordon. At the end, when you see the ring in the rubble, and it says, and you hear Ming laughing, it says, to be continued. And it never was continued.
Fair enough. Now, what's funny about this song is this is one of those ones that I talk about with Tim. I always find it really interesting. Usually, most of the songwriters on Gaga's music are Gaga and one other person. This has like five to 10 people who wrote this song. It's one of those songs that I talk about where they gave everybody credit, and like it's got like the largest amount of people on like one Lady Gaga song. I always find that humorous because like you would never see that back in Elvis's day, but now they have to list everybody and their cousin. They could breathe on the track and they get the credit.
I think it comes down to these producers that sell beats. And I think if you sell your beats to whoever it is, then you're listed as a collaborator.
Well, and I feel like they're scared not to put anyone on there because then they'll get sued or something.
Absolutely.
Like I said, if you breathe on the track, you get credit, guys. That's all you got to do. Today's modern day music. All right. Now, the next one is off the Fame Monster. This is the Deluxe Edition, and this is Bad Romance. Now, this was also one that I think is known as one of her huge, if not largest songs besides Poker Face.
Okay. So, again, first time I'd ever heard this song. This was not super dissimilar to Telephone, and it's in a major key. As I said, there's nothing real. I mean, the Brian May track, You and I, it stood out to me for those reasons. Yeah. But like if I listen to a playlist of like Katy Perry music, I think there's some very strong stand-up pop songs. There's nothing here that for me really makes me want to listen to it again.
You're killing me on the inside. Romance. And no, what's funny about this one is this one has like a dance that's known. So even though Tim has never watched any of like the actual music videos, that's one thing about Gaga is she does like full out music videos too, to go with the big costumes and all that stuff. And so there's like the rah rah that kind of has like a thriller type dance to it. Okay. And so and there was like people on the internet who were mimicking the dance. And I think that actually became more popular than the song itself. Now, this is the one I was talking about. I think I mentioned this on another one. But, when they were asking her, and everybody's favorite carpool karaoke, like, how did you write rah, rah, Roma, Roma, ma, Gaga, ooh la la? She's like, it's just the syllables of romance. Rah, rah, Roma, Gaga, ooh la la. That's all it's saying over and over and over. But for some reason, when you hear it, it doesn't necessarily enter your brain until you hear her say it. And she's like, everybody asks me that. And she's like, it's really not as deep as you guys say. It's literally me just spelling romance. There you go, guys. And that rah, rah line will be stuck in your head, Tim, for the next 6 years.
Well, the amount of times I've had to listen to this playlist, probably.
It's going to be on Tim's Spotify.
It probably will be. It'll take the spot from Harry Styles on the last one.
Well, at least we can bring it back in. All right. We only have 2 songs. I'm just going to kind of work them in real quickly. We'll end this because this has been a long episode. This is another one that is not a super, I don't feel like it was a huge hit for her, but I personally like this song, and this is The Edge of Glory by Lady Gaga.
Yeah, this has more of an epic sound to it. It's the best way I can describe it. It's the same Euro pop, standard chart pop type thing, but it has more of a bigger soundscape. Is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, well, and she's playing on the edge, the edge, the edge. I would say if I had to pick one song that really reminds me of Madonna, and I hate to do that because there's always going to be correlations with her and Madonna because, and Madonna hates her, blah, blah. But Madonna hates like everybody, so that's not that weird. She does. She hates Cher. She hates Elton John. She hates Lady Gaga. Madonna is known to be a little bit of a diva, Tim, okay?
Yeah.
But I also refused to go to one of her concerts after we learned all about her antics. But when she's like, I'm on the edge of glory, the edge, that reminds me of like, for some reason, if I had to pick one song that I feel like plays into the Madonna stereotype, is this one.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's because of that kind of like build up and like the back and forth. It almost gives it like, I don't know what Madonna song, but if I had to pick one, this would be the one I would pick. Now, the one everybody else, hold on, I'm going to Google this. There was one that Madonna, Lady Gaga, everybody else thought was way close. I'm Googling this. Oh, it's Born This Way. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born. That song. Apparently, it bore similarities to Express Yourself by Madonna.
Okay.
Now, they were never found in court. And I think that that's hard, like Tim saying. It's kind of pop music. Like, they all kind of sound similar.
Sure.
Let's be honest with each other. Express Yourself is just pop music as well.
Yeah.
Very, very 80s sounding pop music. Well, I guess it would have been early 90s. When did Express Yourself come out, Tim?
It was late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, fair enough. All right. But anyway, so Edge of Glory, I think this is one of my top ones too. And Tim's right, it has a little bit of a different sound than probably everything else on the playlist. Now, This last one I threw out there just because I could. It's a ridiculous song, but I loved it. It's AA, nothing else I could say.
Yeah. So this song, you're talking about songs that sound like Madonna. This, to me, when I first heard it, I thought this sounds like a techno version of La Isla Bonita.
Oh, interesting. See, I hadn't really thought about that. But I mean, she literally just says AA. There's nothing else I could say like 37 times in this song.
Yeah, it has a similar modern updated feel of that Madonna track about it. And again, this is something that if I was in Ibiza and I was sitting around the pools supping on a cheap European beer, this is what I'd expect to be hearing.
What a very specific. Now, I will say this whole album kind of had this feel, but this was like kind of one of those songs. It wasn't a single. Most people, I don't even know, have heard this song, to be honest. It wasn't that popular, but for some reason because I had a lot of her early albums because I was obsessed. The Fame, this would be one that I would play and I loved it. But I also know it sounds kind of corny.
Yeah. As I said, it has a La Isla Bonita feel about it. And that's exactly what I'd be listening to on a cheap European holiday.
Now, the guy who wrote this one, when she says cherry, cherry, boom, boom a few times, he is the producer. His name is Martin Kurzgazambi or something like that. And he goes by cherry, cherry, boom, boom. If you heard her say that a few times, she's referencing the guy who's on it. Now, he actually has a pretty good list of people he's worked for. I think he does like record label management, producing, that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Lady Gaga, LFMAO, Ellie Goulding, Tattoo. So he kind of has that kind of like feel about him to begin with. Now, where he's from, I have no idea. But I don't think he's American.
I'm assuming he's German or Austrian, but I mean, it could be just the name.
Studying piano. He lived in South America, the UK, and continental Europe before eventually moving to New Haven, Connecticut.
As everyone should move to New Haven, Connecticut.
I guess he lived in quite a few places, Tim. I don't know what his background is, but that's him. But see, I didn't know that until I was doing the kind of looking up for this stuff, like this episode, because she says cherry, cherry, boom, boom a few times in that original album, like the Fame and the Fame Monster. And I just thought it was like a play on words or something she said. I don't know what I thought, but apparently it's him. It's a reference to him. And it's Cherry Tree Records, or the Cherry Tree Music Company. Now, if they're still around, I don't know. And he's not on her later albums. This was very much the Fame and the Fame Monster, which he was more like in the Poker Face kind of reference. Now I do want to say, for those who don't know this, I've said it on the podcast a few times, and I mentioned it to Tim. Poker Face is samples Ma Baker by Boney M. And I didn't realize that Poker Face is the Ma Baker.
Well, there
Never
we
knew
are.
that. Yeah. I happened to be like, what was it I was watching? I don't know, but like it makes sense. I heard Ma Baker one time. I was just watching something that was like playing old music, disco music, and Boney M was on there, that one guy dancing around like he's like the little brother. Like I swear that it's so funny to me when they perform, because we all know they weren't singing, but you've got the two ladies in the back, and then you have the one guy who's like a little bit shorter and just does all the like dance moves in front of them. And it's like when you're like, Tim doesn't have siblings, but he'll get this reference, like the two older sisters, and the mom's like, take your brother with you. That's what it looks like when they're singing on stage. I swear. I don't know why, but he just like, that's what I get. But I was watching it, and it does the Ma Baker. And then I heard it, and I was like, wait a second, Ma Baker. And I was like, why does that sound so familiar? And I was like, oh. I just started singing it over and over in my own head. And I was like, Poker Face. And so then I went and Googled it. And yeah, it is actually sampled. And I still think about this because I've listened to Boney M. I told you I love their version of River. It's a Babylon. I listen to Daddy Cool. I listen to all of it. They're one of my favorite kind of. It's Sunny, Gotta Get Home. Love all of. I never picked up on it. So if I, who has listened to Boney M since she was a small child, didn't pick up on it, I think about how popular Poker Face is and how no one probably knows that.
No, I imagine it's sort of deep in the track, and they maybe had to give that credit for royalties because they used it, but it's concealed in a way that, like you say, even you didn't pick up on that.
And I probably, like I said, I just was sitting here. Have you ever had that moment where you're sitting there going, that sounds really familiar? Why does that sound familiar? What's so familiar about, you know what I mean? And then I started singing it over and over and over. And, he's like, freeze, Ma Baker. And I'm like, what a weird song to begin with. It's a weird song to begin with. FBI's Most Wanted, Ma Baker. But if it's Boney M. And then I was like, I don't know. And then I started singing it over and over and over. And then the repetition just got me. I was like, that's Poker Face. There you go, guys.
There we are. It all came together.
But I will say she did give them the legal credits, so don't come for her internet. She covered it well. All right, Tim. What is your final word? If you had to pick one song to listen to again, not by me forcing you to, which song would you listen to again?
The only track on here that ended up on a premium shuffle is You and I, because it has Brian May on it.
There you go. Who didn't see that coming, everybody? All right. Well, I love that song, and I'm glad Tim at least gets to enjoy it now. All right. Well, do you have anything for the people before we go?
Yeah, just be kind to everyone that you meet. The world needs a lot of kindness. I
agree. And Cherry Cherry Boom Boom is apparently an actual person. That's what I learned. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to